What if everything you're looking at right now, your job, your relationships, your health, even your identity, isn't fixed, but flexible? What if the circumstances that feel permanent are actually just temporary snapshots, waiting for you to shift how you see them? What if your current reality is not your final reality? What if where you are now is simply a launching point, not a life sentence? That question alone has the power to change the direction of your thoughts and eventually your life. What if the person you are today is only a preview of a more powerful, more vibrant, more fulfilled version of you? What if your current self isn't the full picture, but merely the opening chapter? You clicked on this video because something inside you believes there's more. You may not be able to name it, but you feel it. A quiet urging, a curiosity, a hunger to grow. This video is not here to simply tell you to stay positive. It's here to offer you something more profound. It's about helping you see differently. It's about challenging the lens through which you see your world, your identity, your future. That's why this moment matters. Because you are not just what you are. You are what you can become. And maybe that is the real truth you've been waiting to hear. So let's take that idea seriously. As Dr. Seuss said, it's not about what it is. It's about what it can become. Let's explore what it means to stop seeing things only as they are and start seeing them for what they could become. Meanwhile, how many times have you looked in the mirror and quietly thought to yourself, "This is just who I am. This is all I've got. This is it"? Maybe you didn't say it out loud, but it echoed in your mind. That feeling of being stuck, boxed in by your own reflection, can be overwhelming. But let's pause for a second and ask the obvious question. Who decided that? Was it someone from your past who labeled you early on? Maybe a teacher who said you were too quiet to lead. A parent who told you to stop being so emotional. A peer who implied you weren't smart enough or strong enough to succeed. Sometimes those comments come so subtly, so repeatedly, that we begin to accept them as facts. And once we start agreeing with those limits, even silently, we begin to build a life around them. But what if it wasn't just someone else's voice? What if, over time, you became your own critic? What if you started seeing the boundaries and began to believe in them more than your own potential? That happens more often than we admit. We take what is familiar and mistake it for what is final. You might be stuck in a job that drains you of energy, yet you stay because, well, it pays the bills. Maybe your relationship feels disconnected, but you tell yourself at least you're not alone. Or perhaps you feel like a smaller version of yourself, dimmed by years of disappointment. But you shrug and say, "I guess that's just life." We justify stagnation because we fear change, or because we were never shown another way to think about our current reality. But let's consider this. What if all of those things are just snapshots in time? A single page, not the entire story. What you are experiencing right now may be real, but that doesn't mean it's permanent. Just because something exists today doesn't mean it is unchangeable. It can be challenged, it can be reshaped, it can be renewed. That brings us back to Dr. Seuss's quote, "It's not about what it is, it's about what it can become." In all his whimsical rhymes and playful illustrations, he was doing more than entertaining children. He was handing us something powerful. He was offering us a key. And that key unlocks something we often forget we have access to. the freedom to grow into who we can become, not just settle for who we are today. The lock it opens is possibility, and the door it swings wide is one only you can walk through. Now, let's talk about transformation. Think about a caterpillar. At first glance, it seems simple. It crawls slowly, appears fragile, and doesn't strike anyone as extraordinary. It seems limited, ordinary even. But what we don't see is what's happening inside. Beneath the surface, something miraculous is taking shape. Given time and the right environment, that caterpillar becomes a butterfly. Not just different, but almost unrecognizable. Graceful, free, beautiful in a way no one expected at the beginning. Now pause for a second and ask yourself, what if your life is still in its caterpillar stage? What if the reason you feel stuck, overlooked, or underwhelmed is because you've been measuring your worth by what is visible today? What if you've been judging your potential by your current surroundings, your current struggles, or even the opinions of others? Maybe you've forgotten that change is already underway, even if you can't fully see it yet. A block of marble may seem like just a rock, but in the hands of Michelangelo, it became David. A blank sheet of paper looks like nothing special till a writer picks up a pen and begins to imagine. And you? You are no different. You are just you right now, yes. But that can shift entirely the moment you choose to believe there is more in you than meets the eye. So here's a question that deserves your attention. What would you dare to try if you stopped defining yourself only by what you've already done? Maybe your past is a trail of false starts. Maybe you've been rejected. Maybe the mirror reflects someone who feels like she's lost time or missed her moment. And yet, the truth remains. You are still becoming. There is still more ahead. You are not broken. You are not a failure. You are not too late. You are in motion. Becoming is messy. Becoming takes time. Becoming is an act of courage. Where you are now is not where your story ends. It's the raw material, the uncut stone, the untold chapter. And the only real question left to ask is this: what are you willing to shape it into? Because the future version of you, the one with wings, is waiting on your decision today. Let's go deeper for a moment. What if the struggles you face are not there to break you, but to build you? What if every obstacle you encounter is not a signal to give up, but a kind of resistance training, building the muscles of your character in quiet ways you might not even notice yet? Consider this. What if the setbacks you've carried like evidence of your failure were never proof that you weren't good enough? What if they were actually markers of your growth, signs that you're being stretched into a stronger, wiser, more capable version of yourself? Here's a shift in perspective that can change everything. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What could this become if I saw it differently?" That single question can soften frustration, open the door to curiosity, and even ignite a kind of hope you hadn't felt in a while. Now let's bring this closer to home. Think of just one area of your life. Not everything, just one part. A part where you've quietly settled, where you've told yourself, this is just how it is. No drama, no complaints, just quiet resignation. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's the distance between you and someone you care about. Maybe it's the way you speak to yourself when no one else can hear. Hold that one thing in your mind for a moment. Now ask yourself, gently, what would happen if you gave yourself permission to imagine what that could become? What if you didn't assume this is the final version of your story in that area? Imagine being able to say with honesty and conviction, "This body of mine, it's not stuck. It's capable of becoming something stronger, something more vibrant." Or maybe, "This relationship isn't over. It might be waiting for a new kind of connection, a deeper understanding we haven't found yet." Or even, "This version of me is not the finished product. It's a draft, a step, a work in progress." Growth doesn't usually announce itself with dramatic change. It rarely starts with fanfare or certainty. Most of the time, it begins quietly, with a whisper of a new idea, a flicker of belief, a decision to try again. It begins the moment you look at what is and begin to ask what it might become. And in that small shift, from resignation to possibility, everything starts to move. You are not limited to what you see right now. You are not only what you are what you are willing to become. And that willingness is the beginning of transformation. Let's talk about labels, the ones that have followed you for years, the ones you've heard from other people and quietly started believing, and perhaps more powerfully, the ones you've given yourself without even realizing it. Maybe you've told yourself, "I'm shy," or "I'm too old." Perhaps it's been, "I've failed too many times," or "I'm not smart enough to try again." These labels can settle in so deeply that they start to feel like facts. But here's something that often gets overlooked. They're not. They're just stories. And the thing about stories is that they can be rewritten. Those labels are not permanent. They are reflections of moments, not your entire identity. They were created during certain chapters of your life, often when you were just trying to make sense of something hard or confusing. But those chapters do not get to dictate the whole book. You have the power to turn the page. Start small, not with arrogance, but with a sense of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the version of you that wants more is worth listening to. Instead of saying, "I am this," try saying, "I'm becoming that." That shift, however subtle, begins to loosen the grip of the old narratives. You are not unworthy. You are becoming confident. You are not too late. You are becoming ready. You are not broken. You are becoming whole. Can you picture it? Take a moment and visualize the version of yourself that you deeply respect. Not someone perfect, not an ideal that feels distant or unrealistic, but a version of you that feels grounded. Someone thoughtful, calm, wise, and strong. The kind of person you trust. The kind of person you admire, even if quietly. Now consider this. What does that version of you do each day? What are their habits? What kind of thoughts do they entertain? What kinds of actions do they take when no one is watching? Now take a pause. Take one deep breath, right here, right now. Let it settle into your chest. Let it clear some space in your mind. And ask yourself, without judgment or pressure, what do I want to become? Not for anyone else. Not to meet someone's expectations, but for you. For the kind of life you want to live when no one is looking. That's where change begins. Not in pretending to be someone else, not in chasing perfection, but in choosing to become thoughtfully, steadily, and with self-respect. Because becoming is not a race. It's a decision. One you can make today. However, getting practical is where real change begins. This is more than just an inspiring message. It serves as an invitation to take meaningful action. Ideas are powerful, but they only begin to change your life when something is done with them. So it's time to move from reflection to practice, to start shifting life from what it is to what it can become. Begin with this question: how might your relationships evolve if they were no longer defined by old arguments or outdated assumptions? Too often, past wounds are carried into present conversations, as if the past has the final word. But what happens when those connections are given the space to grow, rather than stay rooted in what once was? Now, think about your career. Imagine what it could look like if fear didn't drive your decisions. Instead of settling for "I'm stuck," ask, "What do I want to learn next?" Fear often wears the mask of comfort, but comfort zones have a way of quietly shrinking the world around you. Growth requires movement, even when discomfort is part of the process. And then there's your life as a whole. What would it feel like if it was no longer seen as a list of limits? What opens up when it's viewed instead as a field of possibility? Shifting your perspective doesn't ignore reality. It simply dares to see beyond it. When you catch yourself thinking something like, "I always mess things up," take a pause and consciously reframe it. Try saying, "I've struggled before, but I'm learning. I'm improving." It may seem minor, but language has power. The way you speak to yourself shapes how you see your world. So choose words that point toward growth. Even small shifts in self-talk can quietly redirect the way you show up. Another useful step is to grab a sheet of paper and divide it into 2 columns. Label the left side what it is and the right what it can become. Pick 3 areas of your life to explore. Perhaps your career, your health, and your mindset. Be honest on the left side. Describe what feels stuck or stagnant. Then, on the right, allow yourself to imagine how those same areas could evolve with attention, consistency, and care. The exercise doesn't end there. Choose one thing from the right-hand column and ask, "What small action could move me toward this vision today?" Then follow through. Don't overthink it. Just begin. And perhaps the most grounded shift of all is setting a goal based on who you want to become, not on who you've been. This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about choosing progress. Becoming takes place through small, repeatable steps. You might commit to reading 5 pages a day. You might send that message you've been putting off. Or maybe you decide to be more present during conversations by putting your phone away. These are not grand gestures, but they build the road forward. One step at a time, they carry you toward the person you're becoming. Dr. Seuss wasn't being whimsical when he said, "It's not about what it is. It's about what it can become." That sentence is a way of seeing the world and a way of living inside it. Nothing in your life is set in stone unless it's left untouched. The power to reshape and redefine is already in your hands. What happens next is entirely up to you. Have you ever wondered if your life is meant to stay the way it is? Dr. Seuss said, "It's not about what it is. It's about what it can become." Maybe that's your life too. Maybe the story you've been living isn't the one you have to keep telling. Maybe the version of you today isn't the final draft. If something in this video spoke to you, a sentence, a shift, or a challenge you felt inside, share it in the comments. We read everyone, not for numbers, but to connect with you. Because, like all of us, you are in the middle of becoming. These videos are more than inspiration. They're about transformation. True growth starts not when asking, "Who am I?" but when daring to ask, "Who could I become?" That question might just be the beginning of everything. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.